What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Travis. Of course, this is TWA Motorsports, and today, yes, we are dropping the new parts hauler, I guess you'd call it. Just something else to tinker with. Like I said though, guys, I don't have a ton of plans. You can see that I haven't really done, I actually haven't done a thing. I haven't even vacuumed it, which is unlike me generally, but I haven't been driving it either. I've been driving the Yukon. So either way, today, we're just gonna do a quick drop on this thing. I'm gonna measure out where we're at to start with. I'm gonna put some 3-inch blocks in the back. We're gonna crank the torsion bars down in the front. We're gonna just kind of see exactly how low it gets. I'm just using some belltech blocks for the back. Pretty simple. Comes with new U-bolts as well, because your factory ones won't be long enough. It's not like, it's a little bit different than a full-size truck, like up here where you have to reverse the axle. On these, the axle sets on the bottom. Well, on these, the axle is already on the top, so we have to put space in it to bring the wheel up above the leaf spring. So either way, guys, like I said, I'm just gonna kind of show you what I'm doing and the methods that I'm using. Now, it may not necessarily be the greatest. It's probably not gonna ride great, but you know what? It only goes like 55 miles an hour. We don't drive it very often. So yeah, I don't think it really matters. But either way, let's get started by getting some measurements here. And I'm just gonna kind of measure roughly in the center of the wheel to the opening on the fender arch. And so here we've got 28 1/4. And then let's go here. I bet it's higher in the front. It looks higher anyway. Here we've got, oh yeah, 29 3/16. Yeah, almost 29 1/4 actually, right in the middle. 29, we'll call it 29 1/4. Let's go over here. We've got 29 1/8. And you can see I've already got my wheel chocks in front of both wheels because I'm gonna start in the back. And then the last one is what? 28, and we'll call it an 1/8, just a hair under an 1/8. All right, so let's see how much we get out of drop. Now, like, these are 3-inch drop blocks, so we should at least get 3 inches. They are angled blocks to help with pinion angle. I don't know how much that makes a difference, but it does help. That way you don't have to use shims. The front is gonna be kind of a guessing game. I think we'll have to take it out, drive it, pull it back in. The cool thing is this concrete floor is super flat, and we should be able to get some good measurements. So let's get started. I'm gonna get the rear end off the ground with my jack, get some jack stands under the frame, and we'll get under there and get started. Let's take a look at what we got here. So I've got the thing off the ground. I've got jack stands on the frame in front of the rear end, and then I really don't have a lot of pressure on the rear end. It's actually just the jack is, here I'll lower it down just a little bit, but see, the jack is not even touching at this point. I'm keeping the jack here because once we loosen these bolts, the U-bolts, we're gonna have to lift this up and slide our new blocks between the leaf spring here and the axle. And you can see what I'm talking about. You're not gonna have enough room with that 3-inch in there for your stock U-bolts. So on this, it seems to be a 19 is what fits it best. So I'm gonna go ahead and whip those off. Now, chances are, because of the way the shock mounts, it's probably gonna put some pressure and wanna pull that back. If that starts to fight me, I may unhook the shock, but we're just gonna see at this point. We'll take the 19s loose here, so there's 4 of them, and then there's 4 on the other side. And once we get to that point, then I'll show you guys kind of what the next step is. Look at what we've got so far. Got both out, and you can see that I've lifted the rear end back up because it's not hooked to the leaf springs anymore. And so what we need to do is we need to try to get this block, and guys, I'm gonna probably bang you around on some stuff here, but you can see that it's tapered. That taper needs to go towards the front. So the smaller end going towards the front, the bigger end going towards the rear. And you can see there's a pin, an alignment pin on the top, and a hole on the bottom. So the hole is gonna line up right there on the leaf pack. So you can see that. Well, if I can get it in the spot. And I can't even see it as the camera. So we're gonna get one end on this. There we go. And then you're gonna have to let the rear end down. So I lifted it, and this side went up a little higher than the other side. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go do the same thing. I'm gonna put that block on the other side. And then all we have to do is make sure that that centering pin in the top lines up with the rear end. There's a hole in the rear end for that to go in. And so you may have to wiggle it around, and then we'll put the new supplied leaf spring back in place. There is a piece on the top that kind of centers them. Let me see if I can roll over and show you on the other side, because it's a little bit easier to see. You can see on top of the rear end, there's a plate right here, and that is to put your U-bolts in. So we need to make sure that's in place and put our U-bolts around that, and then we're just going to lightly snug them up after we swing this guy in place, which, like I said, guys, if this gives me a lot of fits, I may end up taking the shock loose. I'm hoping I can go without it, because they do look, I mean, they're not super rusty, but rusty enough where I probably have to get something to hold the center of it from spinning. So let's get the other block in. I'll get the U-bolts on, then we'll show you where we're at. I want to show you real quick what I did here. So instead of taking the shock off, what I did was I was having trouble getting that bottom plate back in place, remember? And I used another jack to lift on the front of the leaf spring just a little bit to bring the leaf spring up and to me to get that lined up. So now we have it all lined up here, and I'm just gonna snug it down. We'll torque it in a minute, but I've got all the screws started on the bottom. You wanna make sure that the pin sticks through the hole in the center of this. There's an alignment pin in the center. So don't lift it a ton, because you're gonna throw the rear end off to one side, but just enough to get that plate swung back in place. Now what I've done, we've got both sides installed, both the little shock plates, I'd call them. The things you're wanting to worry about, guys, or make sure of, is that your block's sitting there perfectly straight. So you need to make sure that upper hole on the block lined up, the bottom hole lined up, and then your centering hole on the bottom plate, the shock plate, lined up. So if all that stuff's lined up, it's a nice, you don't have any gaps like it wasn't lined up. The instructions that they give say to go ahead and torque them down. I don't like doing it that way. I really like the suspension to have weight on it. So what I did was I went ahead and snugged up the bolts, or the nut in the washer, and I just made it to where they're all even, okay, across the board. So we've got the end of the U-bolt is just, I don't know if I can get you down here so you can see it. It's just at the end of the nut. So what I'm gonna do at this point is I'm gonna move my jack stands. I'm gonna lift the rear end up. I'm gonna move the jack stands under the rear end. And then I'm gonna get back under here and I'm gonna torque these to 80 foot-pounds. Now, when I'm doing that, I'm gonna make maybe a quarter pass, go to another one, a quarter pass, and I'm gonna keep doing that until I get to 80. I don't like snugging, let's say, the front one, the very front right up to 80, and then coming back and doing another one. I like for it to be nice and even. That way we make sure we don't have like one that's really long and another one really short, because it won't always do the right thing if you torque it down all the way to 80 in the front and then come to the back and do it. I really think you need to alternate. So tighten one a little, tighten another, and just keep rotating back and forth, side to side. So I'll kind of go in an X pattern. And then once I get one of them to 80, then we'll go to the next one. But you see what I'm saying? We're drawing them up a little bit at a time instead of drawing one up at a time. Hopefully that makes sense. But either way, let's get that accomplished, and then we'll set it down and see what we got. We've got them all torqued here. Got the jack stands out, so we're gonna set it down, see what we got. It's really close to the bump stops, guys. It's actually, in fact, almost riding on them. But I think the topper makes it quite a bit heavier in the back. Look, I think a lot of people leave it. Got that Cali lean. I'm not into that. So let's go to the front. We'll lift the front off the ground and take a look at what we need to do to adjust those torsion bars out. I'm not even gonna measure this because it's gonna be off, because the front's so high, it's gonna throw our measurements off, I think. And so we'll just wait, get to the front, crank on the torsion bars a little bit, and kind of go from there. Now on to the front. So you can see I lifted the front in the center with the jack. I've got some jack stands just for safety, guys, to be honest with you. And now we need to get under this thing. I already sprayed these bolts with some WD-40, but this is what we are looking for. These guys are right here. You can see the head of the bolt right here On the top side, there is a nut. So what will happen, guys, is if you don't, basically what we're doing is we're gonna put a 19 on the top to hold on the nut, and then we're gonna use a 17 here on the bottom, and we are going to loosen this. Now, it's a little bit different than like torsion bars on the Chevy, where you don't really have to hold the top. There's not a nut. They actually thread in to an insert, but these are a little bit different. So what we're going to do is I'm gonna back these off. Now I'm going to count my turns. So I'm gonna start here, I'm gonna go around once, twice, and I'm gonna do the same on both sides, except if you remember, we were just like a 1/4 of an inch higher on the driver's side than the passenger. I'm gonna try to compensate by going maybe an additional 1/4 turn on the driver's side. So that is what we're gonna do. I really don't have a good tripod that gets this low so I can show you, but what I will show you is once I get them backed off, how much they've came down, because you know, you get to a point where, you know, they be dragging the ground, so you don't want to get real crazy. But I am going to go ahead, back them off, and then I'll show you guys kind of where we're at, and then we'll drop it down. It's kind of a trial and error thing, because we have no idea how much you know, so many cranks takes it down, but we may have to drive it at least back and forth to get it to settle out, and then kind of check. But either way, once I back them off, I'll show you what they look like before we set it down. I counted 36 1/4 turns. So when I say 1/4, obviously a 1/4 of the way. That was just the easiest way to count, because they are kind of tough to spin, even though I did dress them. But you could see the amount of shiny threads. At least hopefully you can see that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my jack stands out of the way. We'll set it down and see kind of what we've gained. Now initially when I set it down, it did come down somewhat, but what we're going to have to do is I think we're going to have to drive it forward and backwards to actually get an accurate measurement. Let me grab my tape measure just to see how much it came down, if any, without driving it. But I don't think it probably is going to be much. If, I don't know, it looks a little lower, I guess. Where are we at? Like 29 1/4, I think, to begin with, or 29 1/8. All right, so we're at, without driving it, we're at like 28. So it came down with 35 1/4 turns without driving it. It came down 3/4 of an inch. So I think I'm gonna start it up, move it back and forth, and we'll measure it again here. Now, while that did bring it down, I just went back and forth here in the garage, but it did bring it down another, I don't know, 1/4 inch. So it's like 28 1/8 now. So we got a long ways to go, but you get the idea. So it's kind of a trial and error. I'm gonna lift it back up. I'm gonna loosen them up a little bit more. And guys, make sure you don't go past the threads. I mean, that bolt's only so long, and you're gonna have more hanging out as you drive it. So it really needs to be driven down the road. It's just, at this point it's dark, and I may have to wait until tomorrow to actually drive it down the road and see what we gain. But I'm gonna lift it up, I'm gonna back them off an equal amount, probably at least that much more. So probably another 35 1/4 turns, because we've got a lot left. But we'll do that. So I'll do another 35, and then we will take it out tomorrow, drive it, and you guys will all see this in this video, but we'll take it out, drive it, and then see what it looks like after 35 more 1/4 turns. Well, I decided I was gonna take it out and drive it anyway. So we got down to 26 1/2 in the front, and I think we're like 25 and some change in the back. So we need to come down a little bit more. It's crazy that it'll go that much, and the camber on the wheels, I mean, it may be affected a little bit, but not nearly as much as, like, you know, like my Yukon, for instance. Man, when you start cranking on the torsion bars, the camber goes out of whack real quick on those. But I'm gonna lift it up. I'm gonna give it, I gave it another 45 1/4 cranks, actually, guys. So in total, we have 80 1/4 cranks, and I gave it an extra 1/4 on that side to make it level, and it's actually really close to level right now, within a 1/16 of an inch, and I can live with that. So yeah, I think I'll give it maybe another 30. I don't know, it's hard to determine. So like I said, it's kind of a back and forth, but I think I'll give it another 30 to 35 1/4 cranks, and then we'll take it out, drive it again, and see what we get. So I actually only put 25 on, and the reason why, guys, is it's getting really, really loose. And so I think we're just about at the end. So we did 80, so we did 35, then 45, and then 25 more, and those were all quarter turns. So all in, we did 105 quarter turns, one extra on this side. We are setting at 26 inches in the front, and we are setting at 25 and a half in the back. Now, with that being said, the fender is a little lower in the back, so we're not getting, I think it's actually pretty close to level, but I can't really tell because I can't get you guys far enough back. So here's what I'm planning on doing. I think in the morning or tomorrow afternoon, I'm gonna pull this thing out, and that way we can maybe set it outside and step back from it and kind of see. Because here's what I think the camper shell, even though it's aluminum, there's not much to it, I think that's pulling down the back. I will tell you though, driving it down the road, you can tell it's on the bump stops in the back. It doesn't ride terrible, but it rides like a mini truck. You know, these trucks don't ride great anyway. So let's cut to tomorrow, either morning or afternoon, and take a look at it outside where we can step back and get a good view of it. Well, here we are the next afternoon, and sorry guys, it is really windy out, but I am loving the look of it. I think it looks great. I've got like 60 bucks in this whole deal. Like, the blocks is all I paid for. They were about 60 bucks. I'll list them in the description down below. They come with the U-bolts. It is a belltech piece. Guys, look, there's some cheaper options out there, but I think belltech makes a quality product, and it also has that taper in it to keep you from getting, like, you know, any kind of vibration on the highway. And I've taken this thing up to 55 when I went into town earlier, and no issues whatsoever, no vibrations or anything. I will tell you, it rides a little rough because the back is definitely setting on the bump stops, but it's not unmanageable. It's a little more harsh than it was before. Now the front seems exactly the same. I really cannot tell you a difference as far as the ride quality going down the road in the front. It's just when the back hits a bump that I notice that it's, you know, you can tell it's hitting the bump stop. Now if you took the bump stop out, it would be hitting the frame, and boy would that be annoying. But either way, I think this truck looks kind of cool. You know, like I said, guys, I don't have a ton of plans for it. I'm kind of back and forth on even tinting the windows, like I had told you before. I still think if I found a cheap set of like 17-inch wheels, I may do that. And then let me know in the comments, guys, do you think I should leave the camper shell on and the mud flaps? Normally, that would be something I would have already ripped off, but it's kind of growing on me, and it's not going to be like a show truck or really anything I spend a lot of time on, but I think it's, I don't know, it's kind of cool. Let me know what you guys think about that. But either way, cheap drop, especially on these older foreign trucks. Really simple, especially when they have a torsion bar front end. You know, you don't have to spend any money, and look, they don't ride great in the stock setting, so you're really not hampering the ride that much, in my opinion. They're old trucks. But let me know if you guys like it down in the description below. Let me know what you think about the camper shell and the mud flaps. Let me know if you guys want to see more on this. I really don't have any plans on it. So other than maybe I'll do a cleaning video of me cleaning up the interior a little bit, but I just don't want to spend a whole lot of time here. The only time you guys will probably see this if we're running for parts or something, or if you just happen to see it in the background of another video. But if you did enjoy this video, guys, like always, please smash that thumbs up button. If you are not subscribed, go down there, hit that subscribe button. Of course, ring the bell icon that notifies you every time we drop a new video, and stay tuned to see what we work on next.